Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life. I appreciate you guys joining us. We're in a little smart city just north of Atlanta. I have a great guest today, Lisamarie Bristol, Solicitor General for Gwinnett County. I appreciate you joining me, Lisa.
So much, Rico. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
Yes, this is our second podcast together.
It
Um,
is.
I think the last one was just before you got elected, uh,
Yes.
right?
It was when I
22.
was still campaigning, so
Yeah.
probably about 3 years ago now.
Yep, yep,
Oh
yep.
my.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you took office January 23, so a good tenure. So lots to talk about, right?
Yes.
But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. We have two great corporate sponsors, both based in Peachtree Corners, both family run. EV Remodeling Inc. is a company that does great work. You have a dream home, they can build it, renovate it, add home space to you, renovate your bathrooms, your kitchens. They design your space like they want to design your life. So 260 families plus have been really happy with their work, so you should check them out. evremodelinginc.com. We appreciate their support. And Vox Populi. Vox Populi is family run as well. I want to thank Andrew and Daniel for supporting us. You have a brand, you want to bring it to life. These guys will put your logo, your brand on almost anything. Think of truck, car, vehicle wraps. They've done over 1,600 last year, I think alone. So check them out. Trade show things, embroidering, whatever you need. If you have a logo and you want to put it on an object, challenge them because I think that they have yet to fail whatever we need done. So it's kind of cool. So check them out, voxpopuli.com. So I appreciate them doing that and supporting our journalism, our podcasts, and the magazines that we produce. So, but let's get to Lisa and let's get to do you prefer Lisa or Lisa Marie?
Marie, actually.
Okay,
Hmm.
Lisa Marie. So you've been tenured in the job of Solicitor General for Gwinnett County since 23 of January. For those
Yes.
people that aren't aware, tell them what the job entails. What does that job to do in this county?
Great. Well, thank you so much again for having me here today. I'm
Sure.
really honored. Full circle moment. You were the first podcast I did when I was first campaigning for this
Oh,
seat. So it
yeah.
is wonderful to be back here. As Solicitor General, my job as the elected prosecutor is to handle prosecuting cases in state court, recorder's court, and we handle all of the misdemeanors, the traffic offenses, the code enforcement, animal cases. So everything that's not a felony comes through my court. My office is responsible for prosecuting cases in 11 courtrooms. We are the second largest office in the state of Georgia in terms of Solicitor General offices, and we are definitely a high volume office. So anything from DUI, domestic violence cases, theft cases that are misdemeanor amounts, as well as traffic offenses and quality of life cases like junkyard and animal barking cases.
Wow.
All of those are prosecuted through my office.
Wow. That's a lot. And I remember when we first spoke back then that there was a huge caseload backlog of I think over 4,000 cases in 22. And it was going to be a challenge for anyone that took office. The amount of courts, the amount of work to be done, and trying to make it in an efficient way. So you've started some programs to help better work the system, if you will, versus the system working you. Um, so one of the things you all set up, and maybe you could tell us about it, is the launching of the new website and what that does for anyone that needs to interact with the agency, with the department.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I realized is a lot of people, understandably, just don't really know what my office does. And the reality is most people will interact with a Solicitor General's office, traffic court, or something at that level. Lots of people get traffic tickets, or they may be the unfortunate victim of a traffic accident. There's lots of, lower level misdemeanor kind of public safety or public nuisance crimes that may touch our community where they may be a victim or a witness. to a car accident case or something that occurred in their community, not necessarily the severe violent crimes all the time. And so one thing that I thought was really important was reaching our community and reaching our community in a way that they got an opportunity to understand what we do, how we do it, why we do it, in not a very traumatic way. And so we created this website, which allows us to give out information that we know we're constantly being asked about, things like record restrictions for people with older cases and older convictions to clear their record. So we have lots of information on there about that. Lots of information about our victim advocacy program and how victims and survivors of crimes can receive resources and help and assistance if they need it. We also talk a lot about what my office does and how we can help people and what we're here to do. So if you go to gwinettsg.com, there's just lots of different nuggets of information. The one thing on the website that I'm especially proud about is we started a safety resource library where we're trying to periodically add different topics, whether it's teen driving safety or, DUI, a safety PSA. So people can kind of go there and kind of get like the high level nuts and bolts about different topics that affect everyone in our community, and just get some quick information.
Cool. You also have some additional links to other websites that are helpful as well, it seems, right? Gwinnett County
Absolutely.
Court's website and all that.
Yes, we have websites and links to all of our other county stakeholder partners, as well as lots of resources to other agencies that serve victims in the community. So whether it is somebody who needs help for domestic violence, they need shelter, they need resources, food, culturally relevant services, we've tried to provide kind of a one-stop shop if this is where somebody ends up, to find all of the things that they could possibly need. Additionally, we have, the generic contact us page where if you reach out to us, if you can't find the information on our page, contact us, send us an email. And if we don't have the answer, we will definitely try and point you in the right direction of who does.
And the good part is that the site can be read in not just Spanish, but Russian, Portuguese, Italian, German, French, Dutch, Chinese, Arabic, quite a few languages.
Yes, whatever language you need. I mean, Gwinnett County is the most diverse county in the entire United States.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if anyone had the opportunity to see our chairwoman deliver the state of the county earlier this month, but we have, for the longest time, Gwinnett's been known as the most diverse county in the Southeast region of the US. We've recently been recognized as the most diverse county in the country. I think that's phenomenal. And as such, I thought it was very important to have a website that could properly serve such a diverse and vibrant community. So yes, all of the languages are available with a click of a button.
Yeah, that must complicate things, I'm sure, in the courtrooms as well, right? A little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And we try and have, court certified reporters as quickly as possible when needed. And I'm grateful for the resources that we do have, and definitely trying to expand the resources that we have even within my office. One of the things that we definitely worked on was making sure some of the core victim resources that we put out on a regular basis, we developed them in more than just English and Spanish. We expanded them, I believe, to Korean, Mandarin, Cantonese, Vietnamese, some of the more regularly seen languages that we were seeing throughout the community, to make sure that we could reach people where they are.
For sure. I mean, there's a large Korean population, Vietnamese population in Gwinnett County. Yeah, so it must be. So, I mean, with the growth of the county, which continues to grow, we're the second largest county in the state, 1 million+ residents, and that's going to keep growing probably as much as 20% over the next decade, I bet. Easy. How does that affect your office? How does that affect budgeting and the things that you have to do?
Well, growth is a thing. Actually, the day I took office, my office grew. So we gained an extra judge in our circuit, a seventh state court judge, and gaining an extra seventh state court judge meant growing my office by an extra team, and that was day one. And yes, we do continue to grow. We do see an increase in numbers of cases that come in. I think we've seen a growth of approximately 2,000 cases per year so far that come in through state court. 2,000 to 3,000 citations per year increasing coming through our recorder's court. And the growth is something that we do have to deal with. I have increased my staffing levels and kind of restructured, not kind of, actually restructured how my office handles cases in an effort to be as efficient as possible. We have flipped how we look at our cases. So we are front loading a lot of the work. And what I mean by that is the effort that we're putting in, every single case that comes through my office has to be touched. It has to be investigated. We have to reach out to the victims. We have to make these first critical touches and calls and safety planning and things like that. That has to happen no matter what. At the beginning of 2024, we had approximately 14,000 cases open in this office for state court alone. But by front loading the work, by having, my amazing investigations unit, my amazing victim advocate unit, who've all, since I took office, been nationally credentialed and have poured a lot of training into both teams. What we're able to do is we're able to figure out which of those cases need further resources and need to be prosecuted at a higher level versus which ones we can divert and put into our diversion programs, or which ones we need to go ahead and put in our accountability courts. By identifying those low-level offenses, by identifying those low-level or non-frequent flyers, so to speak, we're able to kind of reserve some of that energy and efficiency so we can put that towards the cases, the more serious violent cases that we know need our attention.
So we're talking about the implementation of the diversion unit, essentially, and how that frees up the case. Well, not frees up, but certainly frees up the time. I can see why you want to front load that to just it's almost a triage in a way because the flood keeps coming, right? It doesn't stop. You can't even put up your hand and say, whoa, it's going to get more, just essentially even just because of the expansion of population, just the natural thing of it. So how do you identify these cases sooner than later? What makes you delay them? Or divert them?
Excellent.
What criteria do you use?
That's a great question. So diversion, for those who don't know, pretrial diversion is an alternative to prosecution. So what it means is it's someone who either has a minimal or no criminal history is given the opportunity to still be held accountable for their behavior, but rather than it ending up with them having a criminal conviction and criminal history, it gives them an opportunity to participate in this program pre-adjudication and keep a clean record if they successfully complete the program. So typically a diversion program will be for someone who is either a youthful offender with very few cycles on their criminal history, less than 3, someone who's not been convicted of any felonies or any violent crimes, someone who's maybe had a couple of traffic citations, anything that's not violent or overly serious, things like that. They come into the program, they have to pay a fee, they usually have to do some form of community service. The fee is not exorbitant. They'll do some community service and they will have to do some sort of treatment. Maybe it's anger management. Maybe it is a values clarification course if it's a theft-based class. Maybe it's defensive driving if it's a traffic offense or something of that nature. But they complete their portion in hopes that we are addressing what got them there in the first place, right? And once they successfully get through the program, which takes about 6 months, with no further arrests or any run-ins with the law, the trade-off is we will expunge their record. We'll dismiss their case and their record will remain clean. So it gives them an opportunity to have, yes, they did mess up. Yes, they did get a case. They were held accountable. They did have to pay their fine. They had to be supervised for 6 months. They had to go through this program, but they hopefully learned a lesson from it. And they have a chance to have a do-over without having the tarnish of a criminal record on their back.
So does this just because the question pops to mind, I'm sure the other people might have the same question. Number one, are these minors, or this would be anyone?
It could be anyone.
Anyone?
It depends on
Yeah.
their criminal risk history.
Okay.
So if, for instance, someone who is in their 50s for the first time
Right.
comes into contact with the criminal justice system and has a slip up and
Okay.
they've never done anything, they too would be eligible for our diversion program,
Okay.
and would be able to maintain a clean history.
Now,
Because
if
as I
go ahead,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Well, as I've said before, and what I campaigned on is knowing that convictions, even to misdemeanors, can have such a dire impact on people's lives.
Sure.
It can keep them from getting student loans, from, you know, stable housing, from jobs, from serving in the military.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can impact them. People with criminal histories may be prohibited from even getting a liquor license, which may prevent them from being able to get a job as a server at a restaurant. So our goal is for those who are low risk, who have made a mistake, who may be restorative, to have that opportunity to do so. And so we've really expanded our diversion program. We've expanded our reach. We've tried to get people into our diversion program as quickly as possible. And I'll tell you, our numbers are impressive so far. Between 23 and 24, we put in about 1,900 people into our diversion program, 1,900 cases, excuse me, with over 1,400 cases successfully completing. So we have about a success rate of successful completion of about 74% on our diversion cases. We haven't tracked this year yet.
So I guess the question for me would be a couple of questions then. One is, how do you keep track of that? That's a lot of people.
Yes.
How do you keep track of it and make sure that it's done in a comprehensive way? Because, people can do things and fool around and stuff, and maybe you're not getting quite all the information. But so how can you track that reasonably well? And the second part is when you expunge the record, what if they come in back into the system? Will you still know that they're a repeat offender at that point? Or because the case is the record's expunged, you don't have that record. So I guess that's the two questions that I know that would come to mind to a listener.
Great questions. So for the first one, how do we keep track?
Yeah.
Well, first, my office keeps track of, we have a team that is dedicated solely to our diversion program. And so their sole responsibility is keeping track of sending out the offers, maintaining the offers, signing them up, keeping up with their monthly check-ins. They are actually supervised by the probation office, not by my office, but they are responsible for staying on track of them and at certain timelines, checking in to ensure that certain cases have hit certain benchmarks to see that we're on track. If someone has absconded or has disappeared or is not doing what they need to do, that team then pulls that case. We're notified by probation. We pull that case, and that case is then put on the regular track for prosecution, which would account for the 26% of people who unfortunately did not successfully complete the program.
Gotcha.
So we have multiple ways to track it, both internally within my team, as well as the independent probation office that handles the actual supervision of the people in the program. In terms of how do we know if they are second offenders, the great thing is, well, what people don't always know is for criminal records, there's levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a criminal justice agency, we will always see somebody's entire criminal history. So even though their record is expunged, that means for employers, for housing, and for those reasons, yes, it is expunged, but law enforcement will always be able to see it. So I will always have access to their entire criminal history and see whether or not they've already been afforded an opportunity to go through diversion on a previous case. So those are all things that are checked prior to them being admitted into our program.
Cool. Okay, great. That answered my questions on that. So glad to see that that would work that way. Um, Anything else about the diversion unit that you'd like to share?
I think one of the things I'm really happy about with our diversion unit is we are working really hard to expand the service providers within it.
Mhm.
And by that, I mean, we're trying to find, as we are such a diverse county and not just in culture, but in needs. So we're really trying to find diverse service providers that we can refer people to. That means having a variety of different types of anger management courses, not just always sending people to the same provider. The reality of it is if you have, say, a 23-year-old young lady, she might respond very differently to an anger management course than, let's say, a 30-year-old man. And we're trying to be mindful of things like that and having a better Rolodex of options so that people can be placed with the most impactful provider that will actually help them buy into the reformation and actually make a difference in what they're doing.
Are you working with nonprofits in Gwinnett County as well that do outreach of this sort?
Yes. And as we go around and we meet new nonprofits, I have members of my team who are able to kind of vet what they're able to do, how they're able to do it, and whether or not we can refer people not only through our diversion program, but sometimes through regular plea bargains with our defendants. Sometimes the victims in cases need some of these resources. So
Sure.
it's really been helpful to kind of build these relationships with our community partners and other nonprofits. So we know what's out there and so that we can utilize them and they can get the support as well.
Very cool. There's another program that you implemented as well, the Duty Attorney Pilot Program. I
Yes.
know you're proud of that as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
One thing we recognized when I took office is that, unfortunately, some people are unable to bond out of the jail.
Mm.
They get arrested on a misdemeanor charge, and they will have a bond, but they may be unable to post the bond for various reasons. And for every day that they're in jail, that leads to housing instability, job instability. It can really have a huge impact on them. And some of these crimes are, again, nuisance crimes or nonviolent crimes that could destabilize them. One of the things I worked really hard with, and it did take partnership with other community partners, with other stakeholders rather, was getting a schedule so that we could have duty defense attorneys scheduled to be at each one of my jail calendars. We do 3 jail calendars a week so far, hopefully going to increase that soon. And at each of those jail calendars, there is a duty defense attorney. That means every person that we can get ready and put on those calendars has the opportunity to resolve their case, even if they would otherwise not have had that opportunity, or they would have had to wait a little bit longer for an appointed attorney to maybe get to them.
Hmm.
The reality is we don't have a public defender's office here in Gwinnett, and our indigent defendants are dependent upon the attorneys who take the cases, and sometimes they're stretched thin, sometimes there's conflicts, things happen, people get stuck in other courtrooms, and what was happening is sometimes the defendants in jail got stuck because their attorneys could not make it for various reasons. I really wanted to address that. And having the duty pilot program has worked. It's worked a great deal. I'm very proud of it. We've been able to increase our volume, increase our calendar sizes, and really start to move those cases on a more consistent basis. Because honestly, the cases that we've identified that can be fast tracked, our goal is to get them out of the jail, let them be held accountable for whatever they've done, and keep moving forward. It saves the county. It's better for us in terms of community safety, and that's definitely what we're working towards.
So obviously you're addressing a lot of the pressing challenges of the office, and you've
Trying
done it,
to.
right, since 23. Um, there's other challenges as well, and you've implemented another program, the Special Victims Unit program, that you all did, and very important part, right, for the other side of that crime. So tell us a bit about the Special Victims Unit.
So when I took office, one of the things I also recognize is there are some cases that just require extra care. I'm very fortunate. I've had the experience to have worked all types of crimes throughout my career on both sides, whether it's been from traffic through serious violent felonies, um, as both a public defender and a prosecutor. And sometimes there are crimes that just require a little bit more TLC, a little bit more attention, more training to deal with them. We have a great deal of misdemeanor sex crimes that the legislature has carved out to be handled in state court now. And those are crimes of sexual natures that occur between consensual teenagers, anywhere between 14 and 18, sometimes 13 and 17. And frankly, those are they're very sensitive. The subject matter is sensitive. All the facts usually surrounding the topics are sensitive. Both parties on both sides, usually the parents and the guardians involved, it can be very sensitive. And I recognized really quickly that it was important to have a team that could really dive deeper and focus in on that I could spend extra time training and focusing their attention on handling those cases with the extra care they really do require. So our misdemeanor sex crimes, our vehicular homicides, which are cases where unfortunately due to a traffic accident, someone has passed away. And those are horrendous cases to deal with, but unfortunately they happen. So it's an accident, but a loved one has passed away. Again, very sensitive, very highly emotional at times, and requires a little bit of extra attention. And so there are just certain crimes that we're seeing an increase in volume at times in the office. Gwinnett has the largest school district in the state. So a lot of kid cases and just needed that extra touch. And so creating the special victims unit was my solution to that.
Are you finding, I mean, so there wasn't anything like that before, or is this new, or are you improving on what might have been there?
Special victims unit is brand new to this office.
Okay.
There wasn't anything like that in this office before.
Are you finding any trends in that part? Let's stick to that for a second. When you say, we have the largest school district, and parents worry about the safety of their kids, both inside the school and outside. Are you finding any trends that you're seeing that you'd like to share?
What we are seeing is we know that teens are engaging in intimate and romantic relationships younger these days, and they're exposed to a lot more. They are, whether it's on their phones, on the media, what have you. And we are seeing that they are exposed and more experimental with things earlier now than probably several years ago, 10 years ago even. I think that's part of the reason why this whole kind of Romeo and Juliet portion of sex crimes was carved out. So what my office is trying to do is not only just the creation of the special victims unit, we're also trying to be very proactive. So for instance, February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And my office participated in a number of activities trying to get ahead of it. And what we did was we did resource tabling here at the courthouse, where we set up tables with tons of information about teen dating violence, where we could share the importance on signs of healthy dating and intimate partnerships and just regular partnerships amongst teens. We actually went out and we were in 5 different high schools throughout the month of February, where we were invited over their lunch periods to meet with various teenagers throughout the Gwinnett County schools and talk to them and meet them where they are about healthy dating habits, healthy boundaries, how to seek help if they felt like they were in an unsafe situation, whether it's a friendship or an intimate partnership. Because what we do know is sometimes teens don't feel comfortable or don't want to talk to their parents. So we were able to give them other resources. Here are some, toll-free numbers you can call. Here are some safe adults you can speak to. Speak to your teachers, speak to your counselors if that's what you need to do. Here are some red flags you need to consider. So we're really trying to be proactive with educating the public as well, not just being reactive.
Are you seeing any activity or exposure to social media that you have to attend to in some of the cases that you do?
We do. Sometimes a big part of it is explaining to teens the impact of some of the things that they're doing on their phones and the potential pitfalls to some of that behavior. And a lot of times going out to the schools, whether it's just a teen dating violence awareness tabling event, or just being at their career fairs, or going to career days and speaking to different youth groups, and answering those questions has been really beneficial. We also participated in a teen summit where we did a panel discussion. There was an attorney, an advocate, and an investigator from my office that all participated in the teen summit, which was in partnership with PADV, the Partnership Against Domestic Violence. Huge event over at Gas South last month. And they had the opportunity to ask those kinds of questions. What happens if I take this picture and I send it to my friend? Or if I get this picture and I send it out to my other friends? So I think having those conversations with young people in a space where maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable asking those questions has definitely been helpful. And we're certainly trying to make sure that when we're talking to them, they understand who we are and they're meeting us not on the worst day of their life, so they can build that kind of trust and rapport with us.
I like the way you put that. Not on the worst day of their life. Yes. Because some kids don't, I think critical thinking sometimes is lacking, depending on the age. And they think, they get a picture from a friend and they think it's okay to put it out because they didn't shoot it, and it's like, whatever. But yeah, some of these kids just you want them to grow up a little faster in how they think, but you don't want them to grow up too fast, right?
Exactly.
Technology, that's always we're talking about phones and smartphones and all sorts of things. How has technology affected you? Good and bad, either in office to make efficiencies or in other ways. Are there innovative technologies you all are using? How does that work?
I think so. One of the things we were able to do in me coming into office is we did apply for some federal ARPA funding. And the ARPA funding was earmarked for offices affected by the COVID backlog. And I was like, hey, that's us. We are definitely affected by the COVID backlog. And I'm very grateful we were able to apply for some of that ARPA funding to enhance and upgrade a lot of the technology in our office, whether it is scanners for our investigators so that they can move quicker in uploading evidence, along with our trial assistants, just making sure we have the equipment that my team needs to work more efficiently. So
Right.
those are things that we were able to do and does help us do our job better.
Right. Um, you talked about a lot about community outreach just before. You talked about, preventing crime awareness in the community, promoting that. Are there any significant partnerships or collaborations that you're doing with other agencies within the county that may not have been done before that you're expanding on?
Yes. One of the first partnerships that we were able to forge was with Mosaic Georgia. Mosaic Georgia is a nonprofit here in Gwinnett County, and they service victims and survivors of sexual assault crimes. They do free SANE exams, they do free counseling and forensic interviews and anything that somebody may need. If schools reach out to them, if a victim reaches out to them, they're a one-stop shop. They're an amazing organization. Mosaic is an organization that I think is critical to a county like Gwinnett, and the work they do is just so important. I was really excited to develop a partnership with them. They are one of the nonprofits that receive benefits from the annual 5K that my office does. It's our signature event. So
Mhm.
every October, we've done two so far. We do our Dash for Domestic Violence Awareness 5K.
Well,
It's the first Saturday in October at Alexander Park. And the proceeds from that 5K, every single penny we raise, whether it's from registrations from runners and participants or sponsorships, is divided amongst Mosaic Georgia,
Mhm.
Partnership Against Domestic Violence, or PADV, which is another nonprofit that services survivors of domestic violence, both here in Gwinnett County. They also service them in Fulton County. We have a shelter here in Gwinnett County under
Yep.
PADV. They assist survivors with getting TPOs, temporary protective orders. They will help house them for about 90 days as they get back on their feet and give them some housing stability, childcare, a little bit of job training to help people who are leaving those really hard situations
Mm.
stabilize and have a moment to catch their breath with dignity, so that they can hopefully make that pivot and launch to a better place. And we also formed partnerships with the HIMSA House. The HIMSA House is probably one of the more unique organizations that my office has partnered with, on a steady basis. The third recipient of proceeds from the 5K. A HIMSA House houses animals when people are leaving domestic violence situations. What a lot of people don't realize is about 70% of people who would leave a violent situation do not because of their pets. And they don't want to leave their pet behind. They have nowhere safe to bring them. A
Yeah,
HIMSA house will house their pets up to a certain amount of time,
right.
and not just cats and dogs. And I ask them every year what's the most interesting animal they've had for the year. They've housed horses, snakes, dogs, cats. They have quite an interesting list. But it gives that survivor that extra level of peace
Yeah.
so that they are able.
I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. When you think about that, the other things come to mind also then.
Right.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit, and because you don't live in a silo, right? Um, Georgia State House legislators, they like to pass laws, uh, and even if we need them or don't need them, the reforms that are happening at the state level or any legislation, they tend to impact a variety of people, a variety of organizations. I am sure they impact sometimes the prosecution of cases or stuff. What uh, what approach do you have to that, and what do you see happening in the state house currently that might affect Gwinnett cases?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, especially in
Yes.
light of us just getting over crossover day. What I think what we're seeing is in the legislature is sometimes we have lawmakers who have the best of intentions
Mhm.
and they want to fix one problem, and it sometimes causes a domino effect down the line.
Yeah.
And we don't always have the opportunity to be like, wait, let's stop and think how this can play out, because you're gonna pass this lovely law and then you're gonna hand it to me to enforce it. And so the way I approach it is I really do try and be open and have relationships with my Georgia delegations. I actually spend as much time as I can down at the Capitol while they're in session.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I've been down there quite a bit. I have conversations with different committees. I've testified before the committees, and offered input on legislation that is being put before the Senate or before the House,
Mhm.
to make sure that they understand the impact of what it is that they're trying to put out there,
Mm.
and maybe reconsider some of the wording, reconsider some of the clauses. And I think having that open dialogue and having the availability to do that makes a huge difference. And I think it makes an impact because they know before they do something, they know they have a partnership in their prosecutors, and they can say, hey, is this going to mess you up? How is this going to mess you up? How do we shift that? And we've definitely seen some improvement, I think, on certain things, not all things,
Yeah, yeah.
by having that communication.
Do you are there specific legislative reform or policies you would like to see updated that hasn't been touched yet?
I would love to see us have some updates on, or some better clarity on our intention with the misdemeanor sex cases. That's been one of the things that I've been talking about probably the most since taking office. Just in terms of intent and direction and some better guidance.
Yeah.
It's a really sensitive topic, and I would love to dive a little deeper into that. Um, and generally, most recently they passed some more law. I don't know if it'll make it to the governor's desk or not, but I know it survived crossover day, regarding how we are assisting victims. We need to be victim centered, and whether or not victims could include their pets for TPO protection and things like that. So I think we're seeing the legislature becoming more sensitive and aware to a more victim centered, trauma informed approach. And I think that's important in this work that we're doing.
Okay, cool. Um, Mental health, substance abuse. I mean, we touched upon that a little bit. Is there anything you want to share about that as far as some of those issues, mental health issues, basically?
I think mental health is an issue that we're continuing to see in the community as we continue to search for resources. That I think that's going to be our biggest downside is finding the right amount of resources to assist the people who need it. I think we're trying. I think we're at least acknowledging that, there are the people that we're scared of,
Hmm.
and the people that we're upset with, and then there are people that are just a nuisance. And I think we're finally moving into an era where we know we can't treat them all the same. But for the people who their real issues, mental health, it becomes okay. Well, what can I do so you don't just keep coming back? We don't quite have the answers yet, but definitely working on it to make sure we're not just putting them on that hamster wheel so they keep coming back.
Yes, I mean, that's, I think we all feel to some degree we're on a hamster wheel, right? Day keeps going, which is by the time Friday comes, Monday comes, we're still doing the same old, and you want to make sure that you don't keep doing that.
Right.
Right. The so okay. I mean, you're only in this now. It's been 2 years. Well, two,
I'm in my third year now.
third year.
Yes.
Right.
So 2 years and 2.5 months.
So too early to talk about a legacy of leaving a legacy in Gwinnett County, but what would you like that to be if that was the case? What is the most important thing that you'd like to make sure you left if once you do leave?
That's a really great question. Thank you for that. I
Yeah.
would really love to know that when people look back at the work that my office does, the work that my team does, the work that I do, that it makes an impact, that it leaves people better than how we found them. That I understand that a big part of what I do is supporting victims during some of the hardest times of their lives, trying to keep the community safe during really hard times, whether it's DUI or domestic violence cases, or whether it's a family grieving the loss of a loved one, and that can be really hard work.
Yeah.
My my desire is to have a legacy in knowing that people look back and say, even though it was a really hard time, uh, Solicitor Bristol's team treated me with compassion and kindness and respect and with dignity, whether they were the defendant or the victim or the witness. And that even when held accountable, they came out knowing that what happened to them was fair. That is the legacy I really want to leave. Because sometimes you may not like what happens to you, you may not
Yeah.
like being held accountable, but you can still acknowledge that it's fair. And I think that's important to me. It's very important to me that what the work we are doing, we are supporting the victims, we're educating and giving resources and doing what we can, but we're still treating everyone with dignity and compassion and being fair in how we do it.
I gotta believe being a mother of three, middle schooler and high schoolers, that probably informs a little bit about how you feel about doing these things.
Absolutely.
What would
Everything that I do, I'm always mindful that my children are watching me.
you,
And I never ever want to do anything that I would be ashamed to do in front of them. So absolutely,
well, yeah, the kids are definitely watching even when we're thinking they're not watching.
all the time.
Yes. Final question, I guess. You came in on, I won't say it was a wave or anything, but you came in during a time of a lot of elections going on in 22, a lot of changing of the seats, if you will, changing of the chairs. Feels like musical chairs sometimes. We keep going back and forth. But I think there was some good expansion, some good things done. What would you consider saying to someone seeking a career in public service or law enforcement in Gwinnett County? What would you say to them that they should know about from your experience?
I think anyone who wants to serve publicly has to know it can't be about them. It has to be about people. It's a very humbling experience. And you may think you're right, and you may think you have the best approach. And you might be correct in that, but this work is not for the faint of heart. I will say, knowing when you walk into public service, you are walking into a situation where you are dealing with a cruise ship, not a speedboat. And it's going to be small incremental changes that make the biggest impact. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in thinking I'm not doing enough. But if you take a breath and you look back over it, and you know where you're heading, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And so when I look back at where we started on January 1st of 2023 to where my team is today, it was small. It was small steps along the way, but I am incredibly proud of the work that we're doing. And I'm absolutely looking forward to continuing it on into a second term.
Excellent. So we've been speaking to Lisamarie Bristol, Solicitor General of Gwinnett County. Appreciate the time you're giving us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisamarie. Hang in there with me for a minute. I just want to say thank you to our sponsors again, EV Remodeling and Vox Populi for their great support of these podcasts, the magazines, and all that we do. If you have questions for Lisamarie, certainly if you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or X, leave them in the comments, post them. I'll have links in the show notes as well, so you can reach out to her directly. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast like Spotify or iHeart, certainly share it with your friends and share our video podcast as well. We appreciate that. It'll be easier for other people to find our podcast as well. So Peachtree Corners Life here in the city of Peachtree Corners. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Lisamarie.
Yeah.
Sure.